had this thought. I love working with you guys. I love dialoguing and like getting different perspectives from other human beings, right? And so I thought, you know, like one of the things that I never witnessed throughout all of my education was how well these different disciplines complement each other and how they're actually needed to understand one another, right? So what I want to do is I want to give an opportunity to have a conversation at random about things and look at different perspectives. So when we go outside today, I want you to offer up your perspectives. How do you view a certain item, a certain process, and we'll dialogue back and forth and see the interconnection between that.
All right.
All right.
Where do you suggest we go?
Well, I love going outside. There's no cows on campus, but there's a nice stream out back full of living things.
Sounds like life science.
Let's walk out there and see what we see.
All right, let's go. Mrs. Barzik, what do you teach?
Everything but what my degree is. I teach earth and space science and physical science.
What's your degree in?
Biology.
Oh, nice. My subject area that I teach.
Yes.
What do you teach there, Mr. Maddox?
Don't talk to me right now. I'm out of breath.
All right, we still got a long way to go.
I bet the Wi-Fi's great.
They're getting silly with social distancing, kids. This is it. It's either the beginning of a great little podcast or a horror film.
Never mind the arrows.
Like the grocery store.
Oh, look at those beautiful shelf fungi. Let's get closer.
This is a gym.
Oh, this side's pretty. It's all covered with moss and whatnot. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna win some sort of photography award.
All right, Mr. Sturgis. So here we are. We've explored a bit. We saw this fungus. It's rather pretty.
It is.
Wouldn't you say?
Got some good pictures of it.
So, what is your reaction to this? Like, what are the thoughts that go through your head? How does this tie to your curriculum? Like, what's your stream of consciousness?
So my first thought was one, it was very pretty. It grabbed my attention real quick. But then I started thinking about, right now I'm in the process of talking about our 6 kingdoms. And that fungus right there is itself its own kingdom. It is living on what is definitely a dead, large dead tree. So it's feeding, breaking that tree down. It is an autotroph, uses other it's a heterotroph, uses other organisms for food. So it's breaking this dead giant tree, not completely down, but it's using it for food.
Say that again. Multicellular.
Multicellular. So it's a bigger organism. It's one of our eukaryotes. That's a good science word for you.
What is a eukaryote?
It means it has a nucleus. It's not like a bacteria or archaea, where the genetic material is just kind of thrown inside that little tiny organism. This is a complex organism that's made up of many different organelles inside their cells. And inside those cells, they have a nucleus.
I remember something about organelles. Like ribosomes, mitochondria? these kinds of things? Or
Mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell,
endoplasmic reticulum.
rough and smooth.
Oh, man, wow. Lysosomes, peroxisomes,
Lysosomes, they break down
centrioles,
only in animal cells.
and so there's a different differentiation between plants and animals,
Yes.
and fungus.
And fungus. Fungus is more plant-like.
Are fungus monoecious?
Why are you? Those are big words.
I remember this, and I'm just like this is okay. So this is going back a long time to my botany class, but I believe that monoecious means mono, like one house. That their reproduction, they don't need another organism to reproduce.
Correct. They don't. They don't need another organism. They have spores inside them, and they release those spores. A very good example, if you want to Google something neat, take a look at a puffball mushroom. Puffball mushroom is this. It's just like a ball, but then when it wants to release and reproduce, it squeezes, and then the smoke comes out.
Or if you step on it.
Or if you kick it, step on it, it'll reproduce that way too.
Which is crazy because I think you saying smoke there, even though it's those spores, Mrs. Barzik, we're talking about different types of mixtures. And I think like those spores would be a colloid, would they not?
I would say so because they are not going to settle. They're going to continue to carry on the air. So if smoke is considered a colloid and fog is considered a colloid, I would go with the spores being considered a colloid within the air.
My background, I did have a biology degree, and then I took extensive chemistry courses, and now I'm teaching physical science, which incorporates some chemistry. So I'm thinking about this in terms of chemical reactions and energy balance, and these kinds of things. And so, my first thought is photosynthesis. So we have sunlight peeking through these trees, and it's delivering energy. And this tree, when it was living, would take in carbon dioxide and use that sunlight to build a more complex structure. That's what this tree is made of, is complex carbon molecules that it built up using sunlight and those little tiny CO2 molecules. And now that it's dead, it's ceased to live, our fungus is doing a decomposition reaction where it's taking that complex carbon structure, it's breaking it down, and it's actually releasing that CO2 back into the atmosphere. And certainly that's not the only reaction happening here, but that's what we're focusing on. And so then that leads me into nutrient cycling and how there's this balance and continual ebb and flow of nutrients in nature, and how they go from one form to another, and they get built up and broken down and built up and broken down. And so really fascinating to consider this from a chemical standpoint.
As we look at this tree, we notice that those organisms are growing predominantly on one side of the tree. And we can see that it's getting some sunlight, but we know that this fungus is not a autotroph. Is that right, Mr. Sturgis?
It is not an autotroph. It's a heterotroph. It is a decomposer.
So the tree was an autotroph because it was able to make its own food and energy through the process of photosynthesis, but the fungus does not require sunlight in order to go through its process of obtaining energy. So my question is why do we see the position of these on the tree like they are, and we don't see them elsewhere on the tree? Hi, ladies. Mr. Sturgis.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Sturgis was here expounding, and I missed it on camera. He was talking about range of tolerance, and that was, I'm sure I heard that somewhere along the way, but Mr. Sturgis, tell me about that.
So all organisms have a range of tolerance, and some ranges are huge, like some pine trees that you might see around here. They can exist in below 0 temperatures all the way up to over 100-degree temperatures. There's some things like a rainforest orchid that only will bloom within a temperature range of a few or several degrees. Between 6 and 8 degrees is its only temperature range in which it'll bloom. Otherwise, it stays dormant. I'm thinking with these mushrooms that they possibly put themselves on that side because underneath that tree would be a lot cooler. So maybe the sunlight coming down on this side of the tree is in those mushrooms' range of tolerance.
Are they edible?
Let's not find out. What is
Xylem
xylem?
up.
Sigh
Slow
to
'em
the
down.
sky. Flow down
Is
to
that
the
what you
ground.
learned?
Yeah,
My
man.
8th grade science teacher would scream, "Xylem up, slow him down," and I never forgot it. And then I taught next to his classroom and heard him screaming it when I was an adult.
Xylem
And it
up.
gave me flashbacks.
Flow 'em down.
Hey, Mr. Maddox, what's xylem?
Xylem up. Flow 'em down. So, as you guys have arteries and veins pumping blood through your system. They're carrying fluids around your body to exchange gases, carry oxygen to your extremities, and to carry waste out so that you can breathe them out. These trees and your plant kingdom have vascular tissues called xylem and phloem. They're like our arteries and veins, and they carry water and nutrients from their roots upward through the xylem, and then they carry nutrients back down to be stored in the roots through their phloem. So two vascular tissues that we're talking about here. I don't think we can see them here in this dead old tree, but they're certainly active. In fact, as we look around here, there are some maples in this stand, and I'm a maple syrup producer. We actually tap into that xylem in the spring to extract the maple sap and to make maple syrup.
See it coming right out.
That was well played, sir. Well explained.
Good.
Yep, what are you looking at, Mrs. Barzik?
All right, I'm looking underneath this fallen tree that we've been looking at from the top. So underneath here, you can see the other types of organisms that are involved in decomposing this big giant body. So we can see little holes and little tunnels. So obviously we have animals, we have insects probably, that are burrowing in, and probably other types of organisms too. And they are helping to decompose this tree and doing a very good job kind of from the bottom to the top. If you've ever stepped on a fallen log or a fallen tree when you were hiking and it just kind of fell apart under your feet, oftentimes they're decomposing from the bottom up.
Ricky Bobby Are you good? I'm good. Shaking bait.
Oh, hey. I didn't see you. Mr. Maddox, what do you got here?
This is a nice maple tree. And I used to bring kids out here and we would tap these in the spring, collect the sap, have a little bucket here. You can see that there are some holes here from where somebody was tapping. These are some older ones. This one here from a long time ago. These are more recent. They haven't healed up quite as much. But this would be a nice tree, a big circumference. When we're measuring these trees, we like to hug them. And if our hands meet on the other side, that's kind of a smaller tree. If our hands don't meet, that's a tree that maybe we could put 2 taps in without hurting it. Some trees are really big and your hands are far apart. We could maybe put 3 taps in those, but.
So is this an example of the xylem and phloem you were talking about?
Yeah, so actually those vascular layers are on the outer surface, and as that tree grows and gets bigger in diameter, there's new xylem and phloem that's built outward. And so we're tapping into that fresh vascular tissue to get that sap. And when we drill in, we only drill in, yay so far. Our taps only go in a fraction of an inch. We're not drilling into the center of the tree. So yeah, that's a sugar maple.
Those are the tree rings that they're familiar with too. That's the layers of the new xylem and phloem that's being built out as that tree grows.
I just noticed here on the other side of the tree, we've got a couple of unusual, like colored things. These are egg sacs of some sort of insect, and I'm a little bit concerned that it might be the spotted lanternfly, which, if you're not familiar with spotted lanternfly, they are an invasive species that have come in along the East Coast. They've had them in Philadelphia and over towards Harrisburg. I saw some. I was down that way a couple weeks ago, and I actually got to see a spotted lanternfly, which we then killed. But these are definitely egg masses of some sort of insect. And I'm reminded of Metamorphosis, which is a book by Franz Kafka, and it's very hard to understand.
It's a touch-me-not.
Snap your leg up.
Crikey! Look at this! What we have here is Jewelweed, or you may know it as touch-me-not. The reason it's called touch-me-not, see this little seed pod right here? This is carrying seeds, and when you touch it, it expands, and here is, where's my finger? Can't find my finger. There is a seed. So when these are ripe and ready, they have like a spring mechanism that when something animal brushes up against it, it releases, and it sends out the seeds as a method of seed dispersal. We know that the number one priority of most living organisms is reproduction. They want a new generation to take over, carry on, and so but they don't want to compete for resources. And so by having that spring mechanism to send seeds out away from themselves, they're ensuring not only that they can continue to live and not compete for resources, but they are going to reproduce, and there's going to be a next generation of touch-me-not. Now, what's beautiful about this plant is I don't know how many have ever suffered from poison ivy, but this is a natural antidote to the oils in poison ivy. And if you think you've got into poison ivy, you can grab some of this, crush it up, and rub it all over your skin where you think you might have that oil, and it will help wash away and break down that oil so that you don't get poison ivy.
So is this new information that you learned after having poison ivy that's that bad this year?
No, I actually used it.
Yeah.
And then I should have probably washed it away right away. But I didn't. I didn't take the time to. But I did grab some of this. But like at my Amish store, because I'm Amish, they actually sell a Jewelweed soap where they have a soap that has some Jewelweed product in it, and you use that to wash with to help get rid of the urushiol oil.
Mm-hmm.
Being out here in nature reminds me of one summer while I was in college. I took a summer course. It was an ecology course at Pymatuming, and the professor was a ornithologist. That's somebody who studies birds, and he was a smoker. So it was 3 hours of lecture, 3 hours of lab, and every hour on the hour he would take a smoke break. And he would go out into the area surrounding the building we were in, and he would listen intently for birds. And this dude could mimic 20 different bird calls. So he would be listening, and he'd be like, "Oh, did you hear that? That's a finch." And it would talk back to him. It was crazy. I don't think I ever want to be an ornithologist, but I thought that was awful cool.
Hey, I was just reminded of something I read recently where we just saw a bunch of mushrooms and fungi back there, where there's this new field of science called myco-reclamation. And myco-reclamation is using funguses and mushrooms and things like that to clean up industrial waste accidents or oil spills. I'll have to get into a little bit more of the reading on it, but I thought it just popped in my head thinking about it, that using nature to fix the problems that mankind has made seems like a kind of poetic thing. So we're wrapping up our journey. We just came out of the woods here. We went in over there, made it back nice and safe. Mrs. Barzik, any thoughts about our walk that we just took?
Well, we're kind of looking at decomposition through most of this and looking at decomposers. So maybe we can get into another topic for another time. But we're kind of at the end of life, especially with that tree that we looked at and how it is going back to the nutrients that other living things will use.
All right. Mr. Maddox, thoughts?
I got lots of thoughts. You don't want inside this head. I'm just stoked. I'm excited. You know, like this, I have these thoughts at random about things that we could do, ideas that we can explore. Hey, thanks to COVID, thanks to the situation, I don't like it, but I'm excited about this opportunity to work with my colleagues, bring you some additional insight into the way a scientific brain works, and try to bring some of these ideas together.
All right, we're not on the path anymore. Heading back to the school.
So,
Senior portrait.
well, guys, this has been fun. You know, I hope that the students find this engaging and they get to see a little bit more of our natural side, us in the wild, as it were. I hope it causes them to maybe tie some ideas together that they have already been exposed to and see how they fit together.
For my young students, you're getting an introduction to your upper middle school teachers. And for you upper school ones, 7th and 8th grade, you've already had me for some of this, so maybe this is a nice review, go down memory lane together.
Hopefully it'll get you out and you can come out and explore. This is all out here, right on your own campus.